In a time of exile, when the people of Israel were scattered among foreign lands, when faith was tested not in comfort, but in suffering, there lived a man whose righteousness echoed in heaven, though his life was marked by darkness. His name was Tobit. Tobit, of the tribe of Naphtali, was taken captive and carried away to Nineveh, in the days when the Assyrians ruled with power and cruelty. Yet even in exile, far from Jerusalem, far from the temple of God, Tobit did not forget who he was. While others abandoned the commandments, while many conformed to the customs of the nations around them, Tobit remained faithful. He walked in truth, he gave generously to the poor, he fed the hungry, clothed the naked, and most of all, he honored the dead. For in those days the bodies of Israelites were often cast aside, left unburied as a sign of disgrace. But Tobit risked his life to bury them, quietly, secretly, faithfully. When the king discovered this, he was enraged. Tobit's property was seized, his life was threatened, and he was forced into hiding. But even in fear, Tobit did not stop, because righteousness does not bow to fear. One evening, after burying a fallen Israelite, Tobit returned home weary and unclean. According to the law, he could not enter his house, so he slept outside, beneath the open sky, and as he rested, something unexpected happened. From the droppings of birds above, something fell into his eyes, and in time his sight faded, until Tobit was blind. Darkness became his world, not just around him, but within his circumstances. His good deeds now seemed to bring him suffering. His faithfulness answered with silence. His wife, Anna, now worked to support them, laboring tirelessly. One day she brought home a young goat, a gift for her work, but Tobit, hearing it bleat, questioned her. "Was this obtained honestly?" he asked, "or was it stolen?" His words cut deep. Anna, hurt and angered, replied, "Where are your righteous deeds now? Where is your charity? Look at your condition. Look at what your goodness has brought you." And in that moment, Tobit was crushed, not by blindness alone, but by the weight of misunderstanding. So Tobit turned to the only place left. He turned to God. "O Lord, you are just in all your ways, and all your works are truth. I confess we have sinned. We have disobeyed your commandments. We have not walked in righteousness, and now we are scattered, humiliated, suffering among the nations. Deal with me according to your will. Command my spirit to be taken from me, for it is better for me to die than to live in such misery." At that very moment, far away in another land, another prayer was rising. In the land of Media, there lived a young woman named Sarah. She, too, was suffering, not from blindness, but from a torment far more mysterious. Sarah had been married 7 times, and each time, before the marriage could be completed, her husbands died, one after another. 7 men gone, not by chance, but by a demon named Asmodeus. And because of this, she was mocked, ridiculed by her servant, accused of being cursed, even blamed for the deaths. Her grief became unbearable, her shame overwhelming, and like Tobit, she cried out to God, "Blessed are you, O Lord, merciful and holy. Command that I be released from this earth, that I may hear no more reproach. But if it pleases you, show mercy to me." 2 prayers from 2 broken hearts in 2 distant places, spoken at the same time, heard by the same God, and in heaven those prayers were answered. God sent an angel. His name was Raphael, not just to heal, but to guide, protect, and restore what had been lost. As the prayers of Tobit and Sarah rose together before heaven, the answer came not in thunder, but in quiet divine intervention. The angel Raphael was sent hidden in human form to walk among them, carrying the power of God's mercy within him. At that same time, Tobit, still burdened by blindness and the weight of what he believed might be his final days, remembered a sum of money he had once left in trust with a man named Gabael in the distant land of Media. Calling his son, Tobias, he entrusted him with the journey, a mission not only of necessity, but of destiny, though neither father nor son yet understood it. Tobias, young and obedient, agreed to go, but he needed a guide, someone who knew the roads, the dangers, the lands beyond. And so Raphael appeared, presenting himself as Azariah, a trustworthy man of Israel. Tobit, unaware that he was speaking with an angel, welcomed him gladly and entrusted his son into his care. With a father's trembling hope and a prayer for protection, Tobit sent Tobias on his way, his heart heavy, yet quietly expectant. The journey began with the steady rhythm of footsteps and the unfolding of unseen purpose. As they traveled along the banks of the great river Tigris, something sudden and violent broke the calm. A great fish leapt from the water and lunged at Tobias. Startled and afraid, he cried out, but Raphael spoke with calm authority, instructing him not to flee, but to seize the fish. In that moment of fear, Tobias chose obedience over panic. He grasped the creature and overcame it, and under Raphael's guidance he opened it, removing its heart, liver, and gall. Strange instructions, yet filled with divine intention. The angel told him these would be used for healing and deliverance, though the fullness of their purpose remained hidden. For now, as they continued their journey, Raphael revealed to Tobias the story of Sarah, the woman plagued by loss, bound by a demonic force that had taken 7 husbands before him. Yet instead of warning him away, Raphael spoke with certainty. She was destined to be his wife. Fear may have risen in Tobias' heart, but it was met with something stronger, the quiet assurance of divine order. What seemed cursed was not abandoned. What seemed hopeless was already being redeemed. When they arrived at the house of Raguel, Sarah's father, they were received with a mixture of hospitality and unspoken sorrow. Raguel recognized the lineage of Tobias, and joy stirred cautiously within him. Yet beneath it lay fear, the memory of 7 graves, the shadow of what had come before. Still, the law of kinship stood, and Tobias declared his intention to marry Sarah. The room grew heavy with tension, but faith pressed forward where fear once ruled. That night, as the marriage was sealed, the weight of heaven seemed to rest upon a single moment. Following Raphael's instruction, Tobias took the heart and liver of the fish and placed them upon burning incense. As the smoke rose, something unseen shifted. The demon Asmodeus fled, driven away by the power of what God had ordained long before this night. Raphael pursued and bound the spirit, ending the torment that had defined Sarah's life. And in that room where death had entered 7 times before, there was no death, there was prayer. Together Tobias and Sarah fell to their knees, not consumed by fear, but lifted by reverence. They prayed not for pleasure, but for mercy, not for desire, but for purpose. They entrusted their union to God, asking for a life rooted not in passion alone, but in truth, endurance, and grace. Morning came, and with it astonishment. Regal, who had quietly prepared a grave in expectation of tragedy, instead found life. Joy replaced dread. Mourning turned into celebration. What had once been a house of sorrow became a place of feasting, laughter, and restored hope. The wedding feast was extended, and blessings overflowed, not only for Tobias and Sarah, but for all who witnessed what faith, obedience, and divine intervention could accomplish. As the days of celebration slowly came to an end, the joy within Regal's house lingered like a long-awaited sunrise after years of darkness. Yet even in the warmth of newfound happiness, the journey still called Tobias forward. The task his father had given him remained unfinished. At Raphael's urging, Tobias prepared to retrieve the money entrusted to Gabriel, leaving Sarah in the care of her family for a short while. Guided once more by the one he believed to be merely a faithful companion, Tobias completed the mission with ease, for the path that had once seemed uncertain was now marked by divine favor. And so, with the silver secured and his purpose fulfilled, Tobias turned his heart toward home. Back in Nineveh, Tobit waited. Day after day his blindness remained. But it was not only his eyes that longed to see, it was his heart that strained for the return of his son. Anna, his wife, watched the road with restless hope, her spirit caught between faith and fear. Each passing moment felt heavier than the last, until at last a figure appeared in the distance. It was Tobias. Joy broke like a flood. Before he even reached the house, Anna ran to him, embracing him with tears that spoke what words could not. And as Tobit rose, guided by the sound of his son's voice, hope stirred within him, once more fragile, yet alive. Tobias approached his father, carrying not only the silver, but the final piece of the miracle. Remembering the instructions of Raphael, he took the gall of the fish, the strange, unlikely instrument of healing, and gently applied it to his father's eyes. For a moment, nothing seemed to change. But then, a burning sensation, a discomfort. And as Tobit rubbed his eyes, a film began to peel away. Light returned. After years of darkness, Tobit could see. The first thing his eyes beheld was his son. Emotion overwhelmed him. Tears flowed freely as he embraced Tobias, blessing God with a voice filled not with bitterness, but with gratitude. What once felt like punishment had become testimony. What once felt like silence had revealed itself as divine timing. Soon after, Sarah was brought to Nineveh, and the household was filled with joy upon joy, restoration, layered upon restoration. What had begun in sorrow had ended in abundance. And through it all, Raphael had remained quietly at their side, guiding every step, every decision, every unseen turning point. But now the time had come for truth to be revealed. Tobit and Tobias, desiring to honor the man they believed had saved them, prepared to reward Raphael. They spoke of giving him silver, gifts, and gratitude worthy of his faithfulness. But Raphael, standing before them, gently interrupted not to receive, but to reveal. I am Raphael, one of the 7 angels who stand before the glory of the Lord. Silence fell. Fear, awe, wonder. Everything shifted in an instant. The man they had walked with, eaten with, trusted, was never just a man. Raphael spoke not to exalt himself, but to redirect their hearts. It was not I, but God who healed you. When you prayed, your prayers were heard. When you gave alms, your righteousness was remembered. When you buried the dead, your faith was seen. and I was sent because of it. The veil between heaven and earth felt thin in that moment. What had seemed like coincidence was divine orchestration. Every act of obedience, every quiet sacrifice, every unseen tear had been known by God. Raphael then instructed them to give thanks not to him, but to the Lord of heaven, who had shown mercy beyond measure, and as suddenly as he had come, he departed from their sight. And so Tobit, once blind and broken, now stood with eyes open, not only to the world around him, but to the faithfulness of God. In the days that followed, he spoke wisdom over his son, urging him to walk in righteousness, to give generously, to remember God in all things, and never to turn away from truth. He warned of coming judgment upon Nineveh, a city whose pride would not stand forever, and in time that word would be fulfilled. But Tobit did not live in fear of what would fall. He lived in peace, having seen what God restores. Tobit lived many years after his healing, his life no longer defined by suffering, but by testimony. And when his time came to rest, he departed in peace, surrounded by the legacy of faith he had passed on. Tobias, his son, carried that legacy forward, walking in righteousness, remembering the works of God, and living not just for the present, but with eternity in view. The story of Tobit is not just one of blindness and sight, but of faith in the unseen, of obedience in uncertainty, of prayers that do not go unheard, and of a God who is always working, even when we cannot see.